All right, let's get this show on the road. Welcome, everybody, to the dark side of AI writing. We're going to take you through the 7 credibility killers and how to fix them fast. We have had over 450 people register for this webinar today, which is really telling us that we've hit a nerve with this topic and that a lot of you are wrestling with how to write with AI to improve your productivity, but of course, without killing your credibility, which is what we're going to be covering off today. All right. So, for those of you that are not familiar with us, and I know many of you are, but many of you aren't, I am the proud owner of Refresh Marketing as well as Communication Skills Academy. Refresh Marketing is my firstborn, so to speak, the non-human variety. And that business is a copy and content writing agency that has been running along since 2003. And we are today very proudly Australia's longest running content and copywriting agency. We also have Communication Skills Academy, which is a spin-off business, if you like. It was born off the enduring success of our business writing essentials program. And we, with the success of that program, we then expanded out our offerings to be broader than writing skills, and we now cover the full spectrum of communication skills in the workplace. So some of you may have gone to our other courses other than business writing. For example, we have business storytelling, we have negotiation skills, difficult conversations, public speaking, presentation, and we proudly believe that we can meet any brief beyond that as well. Your presenters today, you can see our faces there as well, but to tell you an idea of who I am, as I said, I am the owner of these 2 businesses, and I have also been delivering our writing courses for the last 18 years. My esteemed colleague, Veronica Rustica, is our general manager and has also been training for our clients for the last couple of years. She also has an education background as well as professional writing, so she was my unicorn. You might also notice we have Mickey as the moderator in the room, so you might see her posting things to the chat towards the end of the session. About today. So what are we going to be covering? We're going to be talking about AI as a business writing tool. When we say business writing, we're really referring most of all to that day-to-day communication that you engage with to get things done through your colleagues, your clients, your business partners. So, of course, email is a big component of that. But we also, going to consider reports and proposals and updates and everything else. So that's what we mean when we say business writing. What we're not going to be covering is AI as a copy and content writing tool very specifically. That might seem strange given that we are also representing a copy and content writing agency today, but that has its own credibility killers to be thinking about on top of all the ones we're talking about today. So I know many of you here today do come from that marketing and comms background. You will get a lot of value from the tips we're going to be sharing, but you may even want to talk to us afterwards about how we can go further with that. We aren't going to be talking about AI as a business tool more broadly for 2 reasons. There's a lot of people doing that already, and that is not our area of expertise. We're also not going to be giving you any technical advice or specific tool recommendations. So when we talk about AI or pets or companions, we're talking about whatever tool you might be using. As we all know, there's ChatGPT, there's Claude, there's Copilot, and there's others that you may or may not be using at the moment. So we'll be talking about tools in the more generic form. If you do have questions during the webinar, fantastic. We want to hear them. As you think of the questions, please just submit them to the Q&A, and we're going to allow 10 minutes at the end of the webinar today to answer some questions. Depending on how many we have, we'll most likely need to select 2 or 3. And please note that the chat function has been disabled for participants. We will, or Mickey in particular, will be able to share links and resources with you towards the end of the webinar today, but we've decided to keep that disabled so as to not disrupt the presentation and content today. In terms of webinar materials, towards the end of the session, you are going to be receiving the essential AI pattern break prompt that we have promised you for turning up live today. Now that will be a landing page, and all you need to do is click download, and you won't need to put any of your personal details in there. We're also going to be sharing every single slide from this presentation, so don't worry about taking photos or madly trying to read through every single word, particularly because we're going to be showing you before and afters. You're not going to be able to read those word for word, but it's really about getting across the key teachings that we're going to be sharing. So you'll have the slides at the end if you do want to read those closely. And many people have already asked this, and I'm very pleased to say, yes, we are going to be sharing this recording with you at the end of the day, at the end of the session. So sorry, I correct myself. We're going to be sharing it with you in a couple of hours after the session because it'll take us a bit of time to get that going for you. Alrighty. Given the huge amount of myths and beliefs and I guess, controversy around AI writing, we thought we'd start off with a little bit of a game, which we're going to call an AI writing true or false. And what I'm going to do is I've got 5 statements that I'm going to put up on the screen, and Veronica's going to launch an actual poll, and you're going to have about 5 seconds to write true or false, and we'll report on what the results were. But please don't overthink it. Just go with your instinct because you've only got 5 seconds, and I'll do my best to share what the answers were, what the results were, and then what our position is. So the first, true or false, using AI to write your first draft always saves you time. What do we think? True or false for that? All right, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy with that outcome. We've got about 64% of you disagreeing with that statement, and we would also disagree with that statement. So we'd say false. That's not to say that it can't, and sometimes it does, but we really want you to be wary that sometimes editing a weak AI draft back to something that's credible can take longer than writing it from scratch. And you've got to be able to know when it's catching up with you, and you're thinking, and I'm sure you can relate. You're thinking to yourself, "Geez, it would have just been better for me to have written this draft myself." All right, next one. Most teams using AI for business writing have a clear organization-wide policy regarding how it should and shouldn't be used. True or false? All right. So 13% of you think that's true. I love your optimism, folks, but unfortunately, that is not the case. And in fact, most staff today, even though AI has been used as a business writing tool now for more than 3 years to greater or lesser extent, most staff are operating without any formal guidelines in their workplace handed down from management and leadership. And what does that mean? Of course, it means they're winging it, exposing not just their personal brand, but also the brand of their employer. AI will sometimes agree with you with everything you say, even if you're completely wrong. All right, most of us, not all, but 94% of us agree that that statement is true, and you would be absolutely right to be thinking that. And that is, of course, true. And this is something that's called sycophancy. Never use AI to validate your own thinking. And we're going to talk more about hallucinations and so on later in the session. I should avoid using dashes at all costs so that people don't think I'm using AI. True or false? All right, we've got a smart group of people here. 76% of you agreed with me and Veronica that that is indeed false. Oh, dashes, in our opinion, are still a legitimate and useful punctuation tool. Why does AI use them so much? Because professional writers have been using them for so long. And of course, we'll talk about that shortly about how AI learnt how to write. But we still definitely use them. We're probably more cautious and maybe use them a little bit more sparingly. And importantly, we never go with an M dash, we go with an N dash. If you don't know the difference between an N dash and an M dash and a hyphen for that matter, pop a question in the Q&A and we can address it at the end if that's something that matters to you. And the final question, leaving deliberate typos and grammar errors in your writing is a smart way to prove it wasn't written by AI. Oh, I'm very relieved with this response. We've got 93% of you agreeing with us on this one. And false. Congratulations, you may have convinced someone that you're human, but also unprofessional, which is absolutely not the idea. All right, before we get into the 7 credibility killers, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. Some of you may have heard about these, some of you not. Although, if you haven't heard about the Deloitte debacle from October 2025, congratulations, your hiding space is very effective because it did make headlines all across the world. So for those of you that don't know, and to remind you, the ones that did hear about it, back in October 2025, Deloitte delivered a report to the federal government that included made up citations, dodgy references, and even a fake court report. Now, of course, it was because they used AI. But my question to you, my rhetorical question to you is, does that mean it was the fault of AI? And it's easy to blame AI. However, really the culprit, in our opinion, is the people who trusted AI blindly, and more to the point, the leaders who didn't have the foresight to prevent it and put those guardrails and preventions in place. So this particular incident shone a bright, humiliating spotlight on what can happen when the human filter disappears and when people underestimate the power and pitfalls of AI writing. And here's just, some of the many headlines that did come over our news feeds in that time. And of course, their brand reputation is likely never going to recover completely from that particular incident. So that's a dramatic story, I guess, and that's the worst case scenario. But I do want to tell you, a different take on where AI writing can go wrong. Most of you would have heard of Tony Robbins. We actually quote him a couple of times in our workshops, but he's an American author, life coach, motivational speaker and entrepreneur who is known for his smart words. Yet, very recently, he posted this onto LinkedIn, and I'm going to read it out because I don't want you to rush it. Most people think they're stuck. They're not. They're in a pattern they haven't recognized yet. The same relationships, the same money struggles, the same moments where things start strong and then fall apart. Different faces, different circumstances, same core experience. That's not coincidence, that's conditioning. Now, for those of you here who are very attuned to some of those repetitive phrases and sentence structures that AI is dishing out, then you'll immediately be able to tell that this was not written by the human Tony and maybe by the agent Tony or even just somebody that was working for him. But even if you don't recognize those familiar phrases, I'm sure many of you are just going to look at that and be quite confused as what is Tony actually trying to say here. And Veronica came up with this phrase, more than a year ago now. We often use it. It's just really a good big bowl of word salad where we've got lots of words on the page and we're not saying anything. And, AI can absolutely get us into that conundrum very, very easily. So what was the impact for poor Tony? Well, Veronica and I were following the LinkedIn rhetoric that quickly followed. And you can see some of the funny statements here. Well, at least whoever posted to his account deleted the M dashes. So begs the question, if one is just going to have AI generate anything, why bother at all? All right, so as we promised, I'm now moving over to the 7 credibility killers. I'm going to reveal what they all are, and then we're going to go through each of them individually. I'm going to take on the first 4, and then Veronica is going to take on the last 3. Okay, the first one we've already even touched on, which is that repetitive phrasing and sentence structures that are all dead AI giveaways. I'm often laughing how people, how do I make my AI writing sound not like AI, which is kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? Number 2 is writing for no one, and this is all about a lack of understanding of your audience, and in turn, not giving your pet or your AI companion enough context about your audience and the fallout. Number 3, the formal, stiff, and wordy tone that AI large language models do tend to default to, particularly in the absence of direction otherwise. Bearing the point, the passive problem. So some of you may have heard of passive and active writing. AI does tend to default to passive writing, and Veronica will explain why that's a problem. And then there's hedging. Again, you may not know what that word is. It all will become clear. And then finally, the wall of text. Before I take you through credibility 1, I want to introduce you to a couple more people. Please meet AI Andy. So AI Andy, he's never really been confident in his own writing skills. He's always had that grammar anxiety. And when ChatGPT first came onto the scene, he took a big sigh of relief and he's like, I don't need to even have to worry anymore. I've got AI. So what Andy does tend to do is he just gives his ChatGPT very, very quick rundowns of what he wants to cover, cuts, pastes, and hits send. But we also have Critical Carly, and she's going to show us how we can use AI to improve our productivity and maximize efficiency, yet without compromising our credibility, because what Carly is, as her name implies, she brings a much more critical lens and is acting more as the role of editor and not letting anything pass that she is not happy to put her name to. Importantly, Critical Carly has also invested in her writing skills. She recognises what good looks like. And unfortunately for Andy, he doesn't know what he doesn't know. Killer 1. Repetitive phrasing and sentence structures. I did touch on a couple before with the Tony Robbins example, but let me take you through some other ones that I'm sure will look a little bit familiar. And if they don't look familiar, then you've got to get ahead of them. This is probably the one that everyone's talking about the most at the moment, that forced negative, where those large language models want to dish up something that something isn't before that tells you what it is, and it's become one of the biggest dead giveaways of AI writing. Lists of exactly 3 things always, and look, this is a tough one for us because we've always taught in our copywriting and content writing courses about the importance of the rule of 3, not just in triadic sentences but more broadly. I guess just be aware that this is happening, and as with anything, the more you do something, the less impact it's going to have. Those rhetorical questions before every new point, the result, the goal, the reality, the hard truth, the uncomfortable truth. The empty language, unlocking new possibilities and driving meaningful outcomes and so on. The patronising drama that we're starting to see more and more of recently, let that sink in, read that again. Excessive balance. AI models tend to want to just always be as balanced and as inoffensive as possible. So it's always going to try and give you both sides of that seesaw. The corny because endings. What we've also noticed is that your pets will tend to want to wrap up everything with a nice bow at the end of everything you say. And it often does that with a because sentence. Fake empathy, not to say empathy is a bad thing in general, but it's often a difference between genuine empathy and patronizing or fake empathy. The LinkedIn guru transitions is what we call these ones. The good news is, here's the thing, that's where X changes everything, and over explaining the obvious. So this is all those transition phrases and buffer phrases that are often unnecessary. So why does this happen? AI learned to write by consuming millions of documents, and of course, it's absorbed every cliche and overused construction along the way. So unless you direct it otherwise, these are the patterns it's going to default to again and again and again. So why does it kill your credibility? I feel you all know the answer to this, but I'll say it anyway. Readers have seen these constructions so many times now that, of course, they're going to immediately conclude you're using AI. And why is that a bad thing? Because people want to be communicated with in an authentic way. And if you're not doing that, if you're outsourcing and handing your voice over to AI, then they're going to question your competence as well as your authenticity. All right, so here's our first example from AI Andy. So you're not going to be able to read this word for word, but you can see AI Andy hasn't really paid attention to some of the common sentence structures and phrases that AI likes to dish up. It's not just about getting work done, it's about meaningful outcomes. The good news is there's the rhetorical question, and then we've got that move forward collaboratively. So those are corny corporate waffle and jargon that it tends to just throw in there for good measure all the time. So, what would a critical Carly do to that draft? Well, of course, she'd recognise that that's probably too long a communication anyway to get to the point. So, delete, delete, delete. So, you know, we often say the most sweaty, disgusting, dirty keyboards on your keys on your keyboard should be the delete key. So you should be using it often at every opportunity. You do need to break the patterns deliberately. And, what we find is even when we instruct AI not to do those things, it keeps wanting to spring back into them. And that always amazes me because we know how unbelievably mind-blowing intelligent these tools are, yet sometimes it can't follow the simplest of instructions. So absolutely get in the habit whenever you're prompting AI to tell it what to avoid. Okay, because we're so focused on telling it what to include. Try and get to that of telling it what to avoid and keep reminding it. As I said, it's gonna fight you. And as a reminder, you will get a set of instructions towards the end of this webinar that you can paste into the back end of your AI tool. If you've got a paid version or if you've got a free version, I would say just put that into every prompt you use. But that is going to date, okay? So things are coming up all the time. And that's why we say to create a list of banned words and share it with your team and keep updating it. In our agency, we have a chat channel dedicated to this activity. We call it AI signatures, and I've just cut and paste just a recent chat that we exchanged a couple of weeks ago. Natalie, our copy lead, said that she's noticing that chats is we call ChatGPT chats affectionately, using clarity and confidence a lot, and I'm agreeing. And Olivia's also saying yes, she's seeing it all the time. So it's a good way just to keep it as part of your business as usual processes. And here we have lovely Critical Carly's rewrite. Thank you for yesterday's meeting about client feedback. And so she just gets straight to it, and it's all conversational, easy language without any of those AI isms. All right, now we have Killer 2, writing for no one. So, of course, I mean, this is common sense. AI does not inherently know your audience. So if you don't tell it who you're writing for and give them the details it needs, it's going to naturally default to broad generic language, and it's been particularly designed to offend no one, to impress no one, and to connect with no one, to say as objective and as neutral as possible. That is its default. So why does it kill your credibility? Because readers know when they're not really being spoken to. They want to feel seen. They want you to acknowledge their world, the relationship you share. Is it someone that you've worked with for 10 years? Is it someone you've never met before? So that all needs to be considered. And people, of course, that don't feel seen will not stay engaged. Okay, so this is a prompt our friend AI Andy will put in. Write an email about new onboarding processes, keep it professional and engaging. So that's very, very lazy of AI Andy, and he is going to naturally get something back that's very impersonal and doesn't speak to anyone. So what would our friend Carly do? Well, she would get clear on her audience before she even thinks about opening your AI tool. And I know a lot of you here today have been to our courses, and you'll know this is an important lesson, whether you're using AI or not, and how so many people neglect to do this before they sit down to do any kind of business writing. Get clear on your audience before you start. That is your job number one. Now, once you've got clear on your audience and you're using AI, you're in a much better position to include that information in your prompt. What is their role? What's their level of knowledge? How familiar are they with the subject matter that you're writing about? What do they already know and believe? What are their goals, frustrations, their pressures, and what's the nature of the relationship you share? All right, and here's Carly's prompt. You can see it's the same onboarding prompt for the same email, but it's a very different kind of prompt. She's gone to much greater effort to be as specific as she possibly can with who her audience is. Okay, killer 3, a formal, stiff, wordy tone. So once again, AI is trained heavily on polished corporate and academic writing. And I'm going to say that again, academic writing is naturally very formal. And it's been put into the pool of all the material that AI has learned from. And when we, think we're doing the right thing by prompting AI to say, make it professional, unfortunately, professional has been equated with the word formal. So even though the best business writing is concise and conversational. So, what AI might think is, or what your pet might think is a professional tone, us as professional writers would say, well, actually, that's not going to be an effective way to get the outcome that you want from this piece of communication. Why does it kill your credibility? Well, a stiff formal tone only creates distance between you and your reader. It builds a wall. When what do you actually want to build? You want to build connection. Remember, people respond to people. Conversational plain language builds trust as well as that connection. And busy readers won't fight through fog. That stiff formal tone tends to by default be a lot less concise. It just puts lots of filler words in there, and we need to respect our readers' times. All right, here's AI Andy's attempt at letting his colleagues know that part of their IT systems are down. And you can see just by looking at first up, like what is even going on? This can be extraordinarily frustrating. It's unnecessarily long, and the languages you can see, we've got terms like management functionality, implement appropriate remedies, restore normal operations in a timely manner. That's all what we would call as formal writing, but not necessarily professional writing. Situations of this nature can frustrate and inconvenience. So it goes on and on and on. So, how to fix it? Well, of course, you've got to get in the habit of cutting ruthlessly. When that's applying, whether you're using AI or not using AI, we would always encourage you to write as concisely as possible. And I don't think many people would disagree with that as an idea, because we all value when people are concise when they communicate with us. But it's all about being respectful of your readers' time so that they have the same rewarding experience that you want. You've got to learn to love simplicity and, understand that professional doesn't necessarily mean formal, and learn the principles of plain English writing, which is, of course, a big focus of what we've been teaching for many, many years. A nice way to think about it is to write more like how you talk. We're not saying write exactly how you talk, but try and get a more conversational tone. And one way to test that with yourself is to read it out aloud before you hit send and ask yourself, would I say this comfortably in conversation? And if it's not, go back and edit. And I want to put in a note there about watching out for long sentences. This is something that we've been teaching for a long, long time. So you would think that our large language models would know to keep sentences short. Unfortunately, it does not. We've tested things out many, many times, and unless you actually tell AI when you're editing briefing process that you want to keep your sentences nice and short, under 25 words, and that doesn't mean 25-word sentences are okay for every sentence, but certainly as a maximum, then of course it will not do that as natural. And we need to remember that the level of comprehension for anything over 25 words is very difficult for the busy, even educated reader. So this is lovely Carly's rewrite of that same email, and you can see it's much more human. Payroll and leave systems are down, and then you can read that later in your own time, but you can see, you can almost imagine Critical Carly saying that if she bumps into somebody down into the office kitchen. All right, we're on to killer 4, bearing the point. Just like we talked about with your audience, AI cannot know what your key message is unless you're clear on it yourself and prompt accordingly. And what it tends to do is it doesn't want to necessarily ask questions. It just wants to make assumptions and come to its own conclusions. So it therefore fills the gaps and often will get the emphasis wrong. And you might not pick it up purely because you haven't actually done the thinking ahead of time. So why does this kill your credibility? Readers trust communicators who respect their time by getting to the point quickly. If you bury your key message and people have to go gold mining for it, they're only going to get frustrated, they're going to switch off, and naturally it's going to discourage them from wanting to engage with your communication the next time. Oh, poor Michael. So AI Andy is trying to tell Michael that he wants to reallocate budget from his marketing campaign from LinkedIn over to Meta, but he has to fight through a lot of waffle and contextual information before he gets to that key point right at the bottom. So not respectful of the reader's time and certainly bearing the key message. So what we need to do is, of course, clarify your thinking first. And this is why we say, whenever you're using AI as a writing tool, the human process needs to come in first. If you're not thinking clearly, how can you possibly write clearly? Or how can you expect AI to write clearly for you on your behalf? Get familiar with the inverted pyramid of writing. I'm going to show what that to you is in just one moment. But before you hit send, ask yourself, can someone take away my key messages in just 10 seconds or less? And if they can't, then of course, this is not business writing that you want to put your name to. Here's that pyramid of writing. Some of you may have seen it before. It's an age-old journalistic formula. It wasn't created for the purpose of business writing, but we teach to it because it's a useful tool to clarify your thinking before you sit down. What is the must know? Because you know that if you put that, if you have the must know buried, then they could easily miss what the whole purpose of your communication and might even focus on the wrong thing completely. Then we have the helpful to know. So if you're reading a news story, you'll see the headline. You might read the first couple of paragraphs, and very rarely do we read right down to the bottom of that article, and that's what we call the nice to know. And in business writing, we often suggest just to delete that. And here we have that same email to Critical Carly. Yes, we do have that buffer sentence up front, but she's got straight into the key recommendation and used other formatting tools to make that come out nice and clearly. I am now going to stop sharing and hand over to wonderful Veronica.
Thank you so much, Vicky. And hello, everybody. You've already heard so much good information, and I'm very, very excited to take you through the last credibility killers, our final 3, beginning with number 5, the passive problem. So this is all about passive versus active sentences. And for those of you who can't think back to school and can't quite remember what this is all about where the subject of our sentence is sitting. Now, what is the subject of a sentence? It's just the person or the organization doing the thing. And so in the active voice, we put the subject nice and close to the front, but in the passive voice, we either have the subject right at the end of the sentence, or sometimes they are not there at all. So why does this happen? Well, as Vicky's already mentioned a couple of times, AI learned from huge volumes of academic and corporate writing where passive voice is used to sound objective and impersonal. Passive voice does have its place. It's a key characteristic of scientific writing or a whole lot of academic writing. So if you've been through any kind of tertiary study, you would be familiar with the passive voice and you would know all about its place. But in business writing, we don't want to do that. We want to write in the active voice. Now, I should say, if you work in the legal sector or something similar to that, the passive voice also has its place because you can't always confidently strike out and tell your audience who has done something necessarily. You need to be a little bit careful. But for the rest of us writing day to day at work, we really want to move into the active voice because it's more alive, it's punchier, and it also gives better clarity to the writing because we're clear right from the start, or our audience is clear right from the start who is doing what. So it's weaker, it's wordier, it's more convoluted, and yes, it does remove accountability and ownership. And as professionals, when our clients and customers come to us, they want to feel confidence. They want to feel like we know what we're talking about. So how do you fix it? Well, you need to learn how to write actively. And you need to understand where passive voice is useful and where it is not. Passive and active voice sounds complicated, but it's actually not. It's a very, very simple skill to learn, and it's one of the key things we cover in our Business Writing Essentials course. So if you're not up to speed on that, then that is definitely something to add to your list of things to learn. But you also need to remind AI to look out for passive writing when you're using it, either to draft or as an editing tool. And one of the other reasons why it might default to passive voice, of course, it likes it and that's what it was trained on. But if your prompt isn't clear, if you haven't explicitly told your pet or your companion who you're writing to or who's done what in the process that you're describing in your writing, then it will have to default to the passive voice because it won't be able to put that information in. So this time when we're comparing AI Andy and Critical Carly, we've got some side-by-side statements to help you see the difference between passive and active voice. So if we have a look at AI Andy, he would typically write something like, "It was decided that." This is a great passive sentence because we don't know who's doing the thing. And the thing in this instance is making a decision. So who made this decision? We're not sure. The subject is missing. Critical Carly, on the other hand, would strike out with the person doing the thing. And so she has started with, "Our client decided to." So we've got a few more examples here of common sentences that we see written in the passive voice. I want to show you this last one. "Workshops are delivered." Once again, we don't have a subject there. Here we've written, "CSA delivers workshops," or that's what Critical Carly would write. So you can see the subject is either a person or an organization, and we've got plenty more examples that you can look at in your own time there. All right, let's talk about hedging. This is one of my favorite tips and tricks to improve your business writing, and of course, just to improve the writing that you get from AI. So hedging language, what is that? Well, hedging language is words like may or probably or might, any word that makes you seem uncertain. And once again, if you are writing for the legal sector or you work in child protection, any field like that, you may need to rely on hedging words just as part of your day-to-day writing for legal reasons. But for most of us, we want to cut hedging language from our vocabulary, and we absolutely want to cut it from our AI writing. AI loves hedging language. So why does it love it so much? Because it's trained to default to safe, balanced language, and it's also designed to avoid being wrong. And as you would know, hedging is how you can say something without fully committing it. But of course, once again, when our clients or our customers or our colleagues or subcontractors or the media or whoever it is engaging with us, they want to know that we're confident and we're professional and we're experts. And what I say to my students in Business Writing Essentials is, you're a professional, you know what you're doing, so strike out with confidence, write in a confident tone. So, of course, this kills credibility because it makes our readers question our expertise. And so, if you're not confident in what you're saying, why would your reader be confident in you? So, how do we fix this? Be decisive. If you've got data or any kind of evidence that supports your recommendation, say it and say it with confidence. Delete the qualifiers, may, might, perhaps, it seems. Unless there's a genuine reason to add in a bit of hedging language, take it away. And of course, you're going to need to prompt your pet with clear position and outcome. And this goes back to how you brief or how you prompt your tool. Let it know what your position is so that it will take that position and write it accordingly. So once again, we've got some statements comparing Andy and Critical Carly. So Andy would write something like, it may be beneficial to employ this contractor. Whereas critical Carly would strike out with confidence. She would get rid of the word may and she would say, we should. And once again, we've got lots of examples that you can look at. If we have a look at the one fourth down that says to some extent, we would say be specific. Put in a number, a date, a timeline, whatever it is. Always strike out with confidence and clarity. Okay. We are already at killer number 7, our final credibility killer, and this is the wall of text. I get emails all the time and documents that are a huge wall of text, and you are probably familiar with this too. And what I want to say to you is that writing, even before you look at the words themselves, is visual. So when somebody opens up a piece of correspondence from you or a document, you've got about 3 seconds for them to make a decision about whether it's worth their time or not. And unfortunately, if it screams hard work, they're going to put it to the bottom of their to-do list or they're going to delegate it to somebody else. So why does this happen? Well, again, AI optimizes for thoroughness rather than readability. It will pop in everything and try to cover every single point rather than making decisions about what it thinks is critical or not. So that's why you end up with really chunky paragraphs that are 5, 6 lines long, whereas, the default or the preferred is paragraphs that are maybe 2 to 3 lines long. So without prompting, you're going to end up with those dense chunks of text instead of naturally breaking information up for human scanning, because that's what we do when we're reading very heavy going pieces of correspondence or even an email. You open it up and, your eye scans over it and tries to find the information that's relevant for you. So why does it kill your credibility? Well, as I mentioned, it screams hard work. And it also signals disorganization on your part, disorganization in your thinking, but also in your execution. And nobody wants to feel like they're working with somebody disorganized. There's another really important point that I want to raise here, and that is if your document screams hard work, there's a new thing that people are doing now, and you've probably done this yourself. And I know I do this all the time too. Rather than reading it, what we're finding is people are putting these documents into AI and asking for a summary. And so it's really, really important to make sure that what you have created with AI is clear and easy to understand, because if crap goes in or unclear thinking goes in, that's what's going to come out. And potentially what you meant to say is going to be misconstrued by the AI tool and something completely different will be spat out the other end. Here is a classic wall of text email. I receive these on the regular, not from my students though, because they have learned how to overcome this, but you might have received emails like this, or maybe you've written a few. We've all done it. I've definitely written emails like this back in my earlier days before I knew better. You can see it's just a wall of text. As I look at this, I'm thinking to myself, what is this about and what do you want me to do? And I have to wade through these chunky paragraphs to understand that. So how do we fix it? You've got to learn to love white space. You need to let your documents breathe, let your words, sentences, paragraphs breathe, as I like to tell my students. Use headings, subheadings, and lists. Bulleted lists are fabulous for increasing white space and scannability. And you can do both of these things using subheadings and bulleted lists in your emails as well. In fact, we strongly recommend it. And of course, you're going to have to prompt AI to apply scannability formulas. AI does not typically use bulleted lists unless prompted. I often, when I'm using AI to draft, need to tell it, use a bulleted list where appropriate or where you think it would work. And then the last thing is ask yourself, would a busy reader want to read this? Would somebody at 4 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon want to engage with that piece of writing that you've presented to them? And if not, you need to go back and you need to reformat it. So here is Critical Carly's beautiful rewrite of AI Andy's wall of text email. And you can see she's done all the things we talked about. She's popped in subheadings. She's used bulleted lists to break up the text and to make it scannable. And she's applied bolding here and there. So you can see she's bolded the date. Your eye will scan over a piece of writing and it will pick out the things that are bolded and that stand out. All right, so those are our 7 credibility killers, but there are a couple more things I want to mention before we get closer to question and answer time. The first thing is something that Vicky mentioned earlier, hallucinations, and you might have heard this term. AI will, if it doesn't know the answer to something, it will make it up. And that is how Deloitte came unstuck. There were several references in their report with facts and data that were completely made up, and of course, nobody checked them. So you need to be aware that AI will make something up. If you think that it has made something up, you can ask it. You can ask it very specifically, did you make this up? And if it did, it will tell you, a little bit sheepishly, but it will tell you. So just be aware, one, that there will be hallucinations. Two, you really want to triple check everything that goes out if you're drafting with AI. Confidentiality is a really big one. I don't care how many disclaimers you see on your AI, in your AI platform. We're in new territory, and the fact of the matter is, we really just don't know how our data is being used. So we strongly advise against putting client data or any confidential company data into your AI tool. It's just too high a risk. And the last thing is critical thinking matters more than ever. It's very easy to think that we can outsource some of our thinking or outsource our skills to AI, but actually, if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to be able to pick up any errors or any examples of poor writing that come out the other end. It's like me opening up Excel. I'm pretty good at Excel, but I'm definitely not an Excel master, and there's a whole knowledge gap in my repertoire around Excel. So I can plug in some numbers and I can do some simple sums, but I couldn't build a macro or do anything more complicated. And it's the same with AI. If you don't know what an active or passive voice is or that it matters in business writing, you won't be able to pick it up on the other end, just as an example. So it's never been more critical to upskill yourself with basic writing skills. All right, so before we head into our Q&A, we've got some next steps for you, and we've split them up for leaders and for individuals, just to explain what you can do from here to improve the use of AI writing in your organization and, of course, in your own writing. So the first one for leaders is to create and embed writing guidelines. Now, these are very different to brand guidelines. Brand guidelines would typically tell you how to format your logo, what the color palette should be, what font to use, all of that type of thing. Writing guidelines are specifically around the writing rules and conventions that your organization prefers. So it could be around punctuation, it could be around grammar, it could be around some of the general writing rules like active versus passive voice. So if you don't already have that, you absolutely want to get one of those in your organization and, of course, train your people on them. If you do already have one and you think it was, written some time ago, it's time to update it. Because as we've seen, language is changing, AI is changing the way we write. So you want to make sure that it's up to date and it's got the best possible information. The other really good thing about having writing guidelines is it creates consistency in any piece of writing that's created in your organization and across your teams. And consistency is important because it's a reflection of your team and your organization's professionalism. Number 2, train your team on the fundamentals of effective writing. If your team doesn't know what good plain English writing is, it's time to upskill them. And of course, we can help you with that. We run business writing essentials in many, many different formats. But again, you don't know what you don't know necessarily. And this is why we see such poor writing coming out from professionals who are using AI without judgment. They just don't have the judgment. They don't even know what needs to be pulled out, what needs to be changed, and so on and so forth. So training is more important than ever. Introduce custom AI writing guardrails. This is something we've been doing with a number of clients. This is just a document or a standard operating procedure that outlines how to use or how to write with AI in your organization. And so it might include things like which tools to use or not to use, or where to embed it in the process. Many, many different things that can go into an AI writing guardrails document. And of course, Vicky and I would be happy to talk with you individually about that. But more and more important as time goes on, as we saw in the true and false, many people are writing with AI at work, and if you think your team are not, of course they are. So the best thing you can do is get proactive and give them some guidelines around how to use it to maintain your credibility, but also it's about safety and confidentiality. Configure and embed your chosen AI writing tool. If you have a tool that you are using, you've mandated, and it's a paid version, maybe it's an enterprise version, you've got so many options to go in the back end and customize it to cut out some of those AI isms or some of those credibility killers. And of course, if you're writing something very high stakes, we strongly recommend that you have accountability processes in your organization. So you might have somebody who writes, maybe they write the first draft with AI, and then we have somebody else who edits and potentially a third person who proofs. That's the standard process that we follow in our copywriting agency. Now, I know not everybody has that luxury, but what I would say to you is if something is very, very important, perhaps you're sending a letter out to 3,000 customers, it's worth taking the time to embed some kind of accountability process. Could potentially save you a lot of time, money, and pain down the track. For individuals, for you as an individual writer, number one, understand which AI tool is best at what. If the bulk of your day-to-day business writing is emails and other forms of simple communication, you could probably get away with a free version of something like ChatGPT or Copilot. Perhaps you write more complex, wordy, extended documents, more strategic documents that require a little bit more thinking. You might choose a program like Claude, which is a little bit better about that. Maybe you're going to go down the path of building agents and embedding AI into your workflow. Again, these are all things that you want to consider when you're choosing your tools, and you might choose to use more than one tool. I know for myself personally, I have 3 different tools that I use depending on what I'm writing or what I'm doing. As we said to the leaders, you absolutely want to learn how to configure and use your chosen tool. So you're going to get your pattern breaker prompt today. Already you've got your first tool that you can use to personalize it, whatever you're using. But absolutely take some time to go into the back end and learn how to personalize and customize your tool. And of course, you need to learn the fundamentals of effective business writing. So once again, if you only ever learned writing at high school or at university or at TAFE or any other type of tertiary education, that's very, very different to good, effective workplace writing. And so you want to make sure that you are across those. And we've got lots of options to help you with that today. So, of course, we wouldn't let you leave without some further goodies and some further offers. And so what I want to say to you now is to keep an eye on your inbox over the next few hours and days, because we've got some offers. So for leaders, perhaps if you're running a whole team or an organization, we are offering a complimentary AI writing guardrails document for every full day team writing course booked before the 30th of June. So I talked about that document earlier, and that was just about having clear, concise, and well communicated and known guidelines around how to write with AI in your workplace. We normally charge for that, but we're offering to do that for free if you book a writing workplace. And we've got several, not a writing workplace, a writing workshop, and we've got several different workshops that you can choose from, as you can see here, including Mastering AI Writing, which is our new workshop. For individuals, if you book one of our live public courses, and again, we've got a few different options for that one, we are offering you a free before and after AI writing guide. The live courses are run online, so you can join in the comfort of wherever you are, work or home, and they're facilitated by either Vicky or myself. So the benefit of coming to one of those live sessions is you get us live and on your screen, and you can ask as many questions as you like, and of course get real-time feedback as we're working through the skills covered in that course. And you can see we've got business writing essentials. So if you've never done any kind of training around workplace writing, that's the perfect place to start, business writing essentials. If you've already done that and you want to learn a little bit more about how to write with AI beyond what we've covered here today, then Mastering AI Writing is the course for you. Maybe if you are a copywriter or you're in a marketing or comms role, you might want to go to dynamic digital writing, because that will give you, as well as some basic workplace writing tips and tricks, some more copywriting style tips and tricks to help you in your job. Now, what if you can't attend live? That's okay. We do offer Business Writing Essentials as a self-paced course, and we're offering 30% off that one until end of financial year. So you've got just about a month to enroll in that one, and that you'll be able to study that at your own pace. Take as much time as you like. You have access for 12 months to cover all the skills there to help you understand how to write in plain English at work. All right. In the chat right now are your goodies, your freebies. So we've got your free essential pattern breaker prompt. Remember, when you click that link, it is going to take you to a landing page, but you don't need to put any information in. You can just download your prompt immediately. We're also sharing the PowerPoint slides from this webinar, and they're coming in two different formats. So there'll be a PDF and there'll also be a link to a Google Drive to download them from there. And of course, the recording will be coming your way soon as well. So that now takes us to our Q&A.
All right. Thanks, Veronica. Looks like a lot of you are interested in dashes and N dashes, M dashes, and hyphens. I've got about 5 or 6 of you that have asked about that. So I'll give you a very quick summary, given that we are at 12:55, because there's lots of other juicy questions there we want to get to. But if you write the letter M on a piece of paper and draw a line under it, that is your M dash, because it is the same length as the length of that letter M. Then, if you write the letter N, as in N for night, and you draw a line under that, that is your N dash. So in Australia, British Australian English, we do encourage you to use N dashes rather than M dashes. So what's a hyphen? A hyphen is even shorter than the N dash, and that's used to connect words that, for clarity's sake, need to be connected. For example, if I was to say the girl is ill advised, if I don't have the dash, the hyphen there, sorry, it might just read the girl is ill, and the clarity gets lost. So I'm very happy to explain that in more detail with you after the fact. I love this question, so I'm going to just flick to Veronica to answer. Well, actually, I'll answer it first. So the question is, what is your biggest AI pet peeve? Look, I'll answer first. Look, for me, the those repetitive phrases is obviously number one. But I find in times when I do want editing and I want feedback on a piece of writing, it'll rewrite it and actually make it longer and more wordy as just a default. And I find that really, really frustrating. Even if I say, keep it as it is, keep it concise, it'll still just bloat it out. Veronica, what's your pet peeve?
My pet peeve is that everybody is starting to sound the same. And I see this a lot when I go on LinkedIn. I could cover at the faces and I could cover the names and just scroll and read. And I just see the same type of post over and over and over again. I wrote about this in an article this week, basically sounding like you have a lobotomy or you've had a lobotomy because your humanity has gone. So I think, your writing leaves fingerprints, it leaves traces of you. So when you're editing, please make sure that you're adding in the little quirks that signal that you are the person that wrote that. And I had a great online chat with one of our facilitators, Sarah, yesterday. She's the facilitator for our business storytelling course. She made the point that AI doesn't know how Australian women are speaking right now. And absolutely, that is so true. If I'm drafting with AI, I always need to go back and edit, not just for the credibility kills that we've covered today, but for my own voice. I have a very distinct, slightly unhinged way of writing and a turn of phrase. So I always need to go back and add that in.
All right, I've got a very specific question to you, Veronica. Someone wants to know, what are the three AI tools you use regularly, and what kind of tools do you use each
Yeah,
for?
great question. So the first one is Grammarly. I have a paid version of Grammarly, and that one is for in-program editing. So when I'm writing in Word or if I'm writing in Google Docs just from scratch, that is embedded in there and that picks up a number of things for me and offers little suggestions, but I don't use the full rewrite capacity. It's kind of like a advanced version of the spell checker, but it does a whole lot more. The second program I use is ChatGPT, and the third is Claude. The difference between the two, Claude tends to force me to think better. So when I give it a prompt, rather than just going ahead and writing, it will ask me
Mm.
clarifying questions and it will force me to go back and consider any gaps that it has found. And I find that super helpful when I'm writing high stakes documents or things that are a little bit more complicated. And then there is ChatGPT, which I use just for very simple tasks. And also ChatGPT, I think of it as it's kind of my therapist and boyfriend.
So
Lots of
Linda
personal things
wants to
there.
know, AI always spits out the Oxford comma, yay or nay. Love that,
Mhm.
Linda. And we didn't even talk about the Oxford comma. But we are a no as a general rule on Oxford comma, which is something you do need to remember to remove if you agree with us. I know this is highly controversial, but we would only, if it's not adding clarity, we believe it adds clutter. So sometimes you do need it. If you're saying that the socks come in pink and blue, red and grey, black and white, then yes, you need the Oxford comma for clarity. But most of the time, we would say it only adds clutter and would delete it. Again, make sure that if you agree that you brief your pet appropriately. Now it is has hit 1 o'clock, so we're going to close down the Q&A now. We'll let you get back to your work or your desks or your sandwiches. On behalf of Veronica and I want to just say thank you so much for coming. The response has been phenomenal. You'll get the recording very soon, but you'll get an email straight away when we've asked you a question. We'd love to hear from as many of you as possible. That'll be in your inbox in exactly 5 minutes. So thank you for giving up your precious hour of your busy days. We hope you've learned something. I can see lots of hearts coming through. So I'm going to take that as a good sign.
Yes,
Have a
we take that as
wonderful
a good sign to you. Good
have
sign
a
to
wonderful
you.
day, everybody.
Bye.